I'm Jill G. Hall, author and artist, and welcome to The Written Scene.
Hello and welcome to The Written Scene. My name is Adam Greenfield. I am the host, I'm the creator, I'm the person that cleans it up and makes it sound good. Some people call that an engineer. I also call it an engineer, so there we are. Welcome to the show. If you are new here, what we do is we talk to authors about path and process of writing. If you are not new here, if you've been here before, thank you. Welcome back. Please tell everyone you know about this podcast. The more people that listen, the better. All right. All that out of the way, let's go ahead and jump in. My guest today is someone that I have known for quite a while, and I'm always impressed by her poetry and her fiction and her mind, so I am very much looking forward to this. So Jill, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
This is a long time coming. I remember when I started this a few years ago, and I made a list of all the people, and you were immediately on that list, and then you were like, I gotta wait till I have a book out, my next book. So here we are. So let's go ahead and start talking about that book, On a Sundown Sea. What's it about, and what was the writing process like for you?
Okay, On a Sundown Sea is a novel of Madame Tingley and the origins of Loma Land.
Loma Land, and that's here in San Diego,
Here in San Diego. It was founded in 1900, and now it's the campus of Point Loma Nazarene University.
Oh,
in
okay.
Point, yes.
Yeah, okay.
So some of the buildings are still there that were built in the early 1900s.
Oh, cool.
And the first Greek amphitheater in America is there.
Is it?
That Catherine Tingley built.
I had no idea.
Yes.
Okay. Is this a true story?
Yeah, it's biographical historical fiction.
Got it. Okay.
So growing up, there were a lot of rumors about who she was and what had happened on the property. And I wanted to find out the truth and started to research and went all the way back. I wanted to know who she was and what made her be able to do what she did.
Okay.
Was she really a medium and a clairvoyant? What was her childhood like? And some of the rumors were just horrible. And did those things really happen? And so I just got immersed in the research and became obsessed.
How much research did you do?
I started working on it in 2020, and I was getting ready to go to the San Diego History Center and start going to the archives and doing research. I thought maybe I'd order a biography about her, and then COVID hit.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And so I just started researching as much as I could online, and I got buried. Talk about falling through rabbit holes. I fell in the rabbit hole and I got buried, and it took a lot sometimes to get me out of it.
What did you do to get out of that?
Well, after a while, I ended up, I would make sure that I spent time walking and doing yoga and staying in nature. And then also after I had a really strong draft, I thought, I worked with a coach, Rich Farrell.
Oh, yeah.
And he really helped me a lot to be able to keep going, and he made me go back and write some of the hard stuff that I thought I could just skip over. But I also, once things started to open up, I was able to do some travel, and I went back to Newburyport, Massachusetts, where Catherine grew up.
Oh, okay.
And it was really exciting because they had never heard of her. So they were excited to meet me.
They'd never heard of her?
No, they didn't. They didn't know who she was.
Wow.
And so I found out a lot of things that even the people in San Diego didn't know about, that her father was really not a great guy. Her grandfather was transcendentalist and was really wonderful and supportive to her and her visions. And as a child, she had a vision of a white city on a sundown sea.
There it is.
There it is.
Yeah.
There it is.
Okay.
And so I found out a lot of things about her. I wanted to just go and visit the Laurels, which is what she talked about her whole life, where she grew up. So a woman from the Old Newberry Museum said she didn't know where it was, but she started to research and she found out where it was. And when I went to visit, we went for a hike to it, and it's
cool.
overlooking the Merrimack River, and it's now in a state park.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So I was able to go there, and I have some photos of being there, and it's so beautiful.
Did she write about these laurels?
She mostly spoke about them.
Okay.
Spoke about them. She was really an orator.
Yeah.
More than she was a writer.
Got it. Okay.
And so a lot of the things that we read now about her are things that she said, speeches she gave that then ended up being printed.
Got it. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I just read a little sidetrack. I just read a graduation commencement speech by Camus, about it's called "Create Dangerously," and it's a very heady piece.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was a speech that eventually got transcribed and printed out there. So I love when stuff that happens.
Yeah.
So I have like 17 questions now about that. I want to talk a little bit about the research part and falling into rabbit holes, because in an interview with Kristen Arnett, who is, she studied and she has master's degree in library science. So for her, research was just what she did. That's doing research. And we talked a little bit about falling into that rabbit hole of research and actually not writing the book. Did you start to feel that as you were going on? And what did you do to force yourself to get back to the writing aspect of it?
Well, it was kind of the opposite for me. What happened was I told myself, I'm going to write this book. And I had a friend that told me, I'd written, my third book had come out that was part of a series. And I said, I'm never writing another novel, ever. It's too much work.
Too much, yeah.
And then I had a friend that was over at my house, and he started to ask me about the property at Point Loma Nazarene. And all this information started to flow out of me of memories of driving up Catalina and my mom pointing over to the property, and she said, "Oh, see that round building? This kooky lady lived there." And she thought her husband had been reincarnated as a turtle. So she built that building over there round so he wouldn't get caught in the corners.
Oh my God, that's fantastic. That is great.
Yes. And so I started, and there were other things that I remembered that I had actually performed when I was 10 years old in the amphitheater, because they had the first Greek festival at Cal Western University, which had been there then. But then I found out later through research that was the only Greek festival.
They didn't have any other after that.
Yeah, they didn't.
Wow.
So I was in Oedipus Rex. I was one of his daughters. And so anyway, all these rumors. And so my friend looked at me and he said, "Jill, that's your next novel."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Oh no.
I got to write another novel."
So I started to research, and I said, "Okay, I'm going to spend the whole year just researching. I'm not even going to start to write." But then since COVID hit, I wasn't able to go to the archives. And I started to write, started to just read, and then I was going to Tanya P., one of our poetry teachers through Writers Inc.
Is it Proputnowitz?
Yes. Oh, beautiful. You got it. I think that sounds right.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
And she was doing a tarot writing workshop online.
Okay. Yeah.
It was on Zoom.
Yeah.
And so we would meet every Monday, and we'd have a different card from the Arcana, and we would write to what it visually looked like.
Okay.
And then we would read the description of it and see how close it was, and we would write again. And so
fun.
Catherine ended up showing up on the page. And so I would just kind of write scenes, and a lot of it would be I had read a scene, or the research, and then some of that would end up on the page through that.
Okay.
And I've always been an intuitive writer. So I've never researched anything before. My other books were historical fiction, dual timeline.
Okay.
And so I wrote all of those books first, and then I would go back and do fact checking on what was historically accurate.
Got it.
We need to make sure we're accurate.
So you did change it, even though it was historical fiction. You still changed it to be as accurate to a certain degree.
For this book.
For
all of them.
For all of them, yeah.
As a historical fiction writer, that is one of our obligations.
Okay.
Is we need to be as historically accurate as possible.
Got it. Okay.
So that was my goal, but I was writing it, this one from Catherine's point of view, and of course, we don't know what she was feeling or thinking.
Right.
And that was part of my job, was to find out what the facts were and then go with those and what she was feeling and thinking. But there were so many things that were in the archives and out there that were conflicting.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there was a lot of people that were against her and what she was doing, and then there was a lot of yellow journalism. So I couldn't even believe what was in the papers.
Yeah.
So it was really a challenge to find out what the truth was.
Yeah, yeah. How did you decide what the truth was? And I know that's an odd question and probably phrased weirdly, but like how did you determine what was the most accurate information?
So first of all, I wanted to know if she was really a medium and a clairvoyant.
Okay.
I didn't know what that meant.
Yeah.
I didn't know what a medium was or a clairvoyant. And just serendipitously, I was on a Zoom call with some friends. We were having a cocktail Zoom during COVID. And one of my friends I've known for a long time, we were sharing what we were doing. And she said, oh, well, I haven't told you guys this, but I'm a medium. So I started to work with her, and she shared with me what a medium was.
Yeah.
And I did some sittings with her, and I totally understand, and I believe in it now.
Mediums are interesting.
Yes, and I totally buy it. And then a clairvoyant, I've realized that she really had some visions. This first one of having a white city on a sundown sea,
that's crazy.
And then having it come to fruition, that is, telling the future.
It's kind of hard when you encounter that sort of thing to not believe it.
Yes.
I had an actual, I had an interaction with one back in my 20s. A friend of mine unfortunately took his life a while back, and I remember a few years later I was talking with a coworker of mine, and we were just hanging out, and she was like there's something around you, because she was a medium, and she was like, there's something around you that you're holding on to and you shouldn't be. And I was like, what do you mean? And she started, just kind of sat back for a second. She goes, did you have a friend who committed suicide? And I was like, oh my God, like, how did you didn't meet him? How did you know this? And then she just described the fuzzy Led Zeppelin poster on his wall in his bedroom. And I was like, all right, I'm in. Like, how can I deny that?
Exactly. Exactly. When they're so specific of evidence that person did live and that they're getting messages for us from that person.
Yeah.
So I was able to use some of that information to be able to write the book.
Okay.
Because she does some readings in the book.
Yeah.
And it was really helpful. Now, the other thing that I used to help me to be able to know what was true and what wasn't is I worked very closely with a gentleman whose parents grew up on Loma Land with Catherine Tingley.
Oh, so
And he had a lot of lores, family lores to share with me. He has his own set of archives that were at San Diego State. They're not there anymore, but he helped me be able to have access to them.
Those. Wow.
And he's been incredibly helpful. And sometimes I would contact him and I'd say, oh, do you have evidence? So one thing I said, do you have evidence that she was a medium and doing readings? Because once she got to Point Loma, she downplayed all of that. And there isn't evidence that she did it at Point Loma. But I said, ever. And so she was able to go in and find some really old articles that somebody had found. And it did show where when she was younger that she actually did readings. She did some in her home and mail order.
Mail order?
Yes.
That is the weirdest medium I've ever heard of.
You pay $1.
Yeah.
And then and then also they described one of the readings that she did where she was blindfolded, and then she would touch. So she was a special kind of medium that would touch something. So people would put gloves and scarves out there, and then she would be blindfolded and pick and touch that from the tray. And she would actually did them mostly as fundraisers for her philanthropic interests. She had a mission, and this is in Manhattan and Lower East Side, the Do Good mission, where she worked with immigrants.
Oh, cool.
And the story opens in 1888, where she's there feeding the immigrants.
Yeah.
And then that's where she first encounters William Q. Judge, who is the head of the Theosophical Society, who saw her potential and ended up working with her to be able to see that her dream can become a reality.
Wow. That's all right. I have a copy of this book, and I can't wait to dig in. I'm gonna have to put the one I'm reading down now and start that one. No, that's a cool story. I can't wait to read it. I'm excited. Let's go back. Let's go back way back to when you were a kid. I'm curious, what were some of the creative stuff or the books that you were reading as a kid, and maybe like who were your literary influences? Not the authors, but did you have teachers or parents or siblings that sort of helped guide you through some of the books you read?
Well, my 5th grade teacher, Mrs. Knyazov at Silvergate Elementary, was just wonderful. And she was really into doing arts and culture. We did Shakespeare and visual arts. And we read a lot. She would read to us aloud, and I still have this vision of, it was 100 degrees, and we were all in the auditorium on the old tile floor, and it was very cool.
Yeah.
And she started taking us to Shakespeare plays at the Old Globe.
At 10 years old?
Grade. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I've always loved Shakespeare, and I think it's because I started early.
Yeah, you probably had a good teacher, which is important when it comes to Shakespeare.
Yeah, and then when I was in high school, I knew I wanted to be a teacher, so I would walk to Silvergate, and I volunteered in her classroom.
Oh, fun!
And yeah.
So you knew early on some of the things that you wanted to do.
I knew early on that I wanted to be a teacher.
Want to be a teacher.
That was my calling.
Yeah.
And I just went for it. And I taught for 20 years in inner city here in San Diego.
Wow. Did you know writing would be a part of your life at some point? No.
I was always really creative. So I started dancing when I was really young.
Oh, fun. Okay.
And then performed. I did musical theater, and I was in a dance company at the Old Globe that would perform on the grass.
Fun. Okay.
In front before the Shakespeare plays. And did some community theater. And so I really loved that. And then I started to... in teaching, I integrated the arts into everything I did, and I really believe that helps children learn more.
Yeah.
Then, as I got older, I started to do visual arts. So I started to do mosaics.
Oh, fun. Okay.
I was downtown one night and wandered into an art gallery, and there was this table there that I just loved, and it was with tiles and broken pieces, and I went home and dreamt about it. And the next morning I said, I have to go get that table.
Yeah.
And I went down and found out that the woman had taught workshops downtown at the gallery, and I took 2 Sunday afternoons and then got obsessed.
Yeah.
And I just started to break dishes and tiles and took over my whole house.
Sounds fun,
and
actually.
So I use found objects in my artwork.
Oh, cool.
Like Anne in my series does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So are you? Oh boy, maybe I'll save that question for later, because I'm curious, how much of ourselves that we put into these stories.
How I started writing is when I stopped teaching, I really felt like I needed something quiet to do that was creative.
Yeah.
And I had met Judy Reeves. We had been in a workshop together, a body writing weekend workshop.
Oh, okay.
And had met Ben. And that was really cool. We slept next to the altar in the living room in sleeping bags. That's the first time I met Judy.
Yeah.
And now this is how many years later? Like 20-some.
Yeah.
And we're actually 25, and we're still really close.
Yeah, you guys seem joined at the hip sometimes.
We are. We're really bonded.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful to her, because I know none of these books would have happened without her.
Really? Yeah.
Not
how much
at
of an
all.
influence did she have on
Yes.
them? She had a big one? Yeah.
Well, so what happened was I wanted to start writing, so she was teaching a workshop every Tuesday, a drop-in writing, and I would go every Tuesday and just started writing. And I thought I'd write children's books, or maybe story about being a classroom teacher, a memoir.
Yeah.
And that's not what happened. Characters appeared on the page out of nowhere, and it was through her prompt writing, and then we were timed and just kept writing, and I just kept going.
That's great. That's great. So I love hearing how some writers, it's just they discover that they have this thing inside them, and they learn about it in a creative way. Like me, when I first started getting really into writing, I love writing dialogue. Like it's so fun for me, because it's just easy. It just flows out, and I didn't realize it until I sat down and tried to write a dialogue only story, and I was like, oh, this is great. I love this. And it just happened, I didn't even have to think in a way, it just came out. So I love hearing that you discovered that you have this imagination almost inside of you.
Well, and it is inside. I really don't take credit for any of my writing. I really believe that it comes to me.
Okay.
And
yeah.
I'm just,
here's the vessel.
It's intuitive, it's very intuitive. And I'm, so I also started working with a shaman because I wanted to know more about esoteric and astral travel for this book I'm writing. And she said that I actually was channeling my writing.
That's great.
And so there it is. It's on the page and it gets there. And I do all my writing by hand.
Pen and paper or
I have a journal. I have journals.
Okay.
Spiral notebooks.
Yeah,
and then I write it with a pen. And then we'll have a stack of, my first one, I had a stack really tall of journals. And then I finally started typing them up.
Okay.
And I put stickies in the pages that I felt were strong and worthy.
Yeah.
And then I just started typing. And it was all over the place. I had no idea what I was doing.
It's kind of the idea of a journal, right?
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
So you started writing after teaching, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. While you were teaching, did you try writing at all, or
I did. I wrote some children's plays for the children that I was working with.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And I facilitated one part. I would do units on mythology, for instance, and each group would have different Greek myths, and then they would write plays out of them, and we did it with fairy tales and whatnot. And then
fun.
I would clean them up, and I once or twice, actually 3 times, I wrote musicals. Co-wrote them with someone on staff.
Oh, fun. Okay.
And we had the students perform them, and they were always on themes that we were teaching.
Oh, okay. Got it. Going back to that channeling part, is it easy for you to get into that zone, or do you have to work into it? And if you find yourself struggling to get into it, what tricks do you do to get into it, or do you just walk away and say, today's not my day?
Usually what works for me best is to have a prompt.
Okay.
And it could be either a word prompt, a couple of words, a phrase, or it can be a visual prompt. I love to write to pictures, especially if they're historical photos.
Yeah.
And I'm working on historical fiction.
Yeah.
So, and sometimes I'll even make a collage of my character, for instance, and I'm working with, and I'll go through a magazine. I'll think, okay, what would my character
look like? Or,
yes.
Okay.
And what would my character enjoy doing? And I would make a collage of that.
That's fun.
And then I'll use that.
That's a great way to create a character arc or development. Is just going through and finding the visual of it. Yeah.
And then I can. It helps me to go into detail too. So if I'm just not into what I'm working on, I'll go out and do something else.
Yeah,
I'll pull weeds. I love to pull weeds.
I see you posting pictures of your garden.
Yes, I love to go out in my garden.
Yeah.
And yes.
Okay, that's a good way to do it. I'll clean the apartment.
Okay.
That's the cleaning. I'll do dishes. I'll just
good. Yeah, do something else.
Right. Are you thinking about it while you're out in the garden, or do you try not to think about it?
I try not to think about it, but then it'll happen.
It trickles
Many
in, doesn't
times
it?
it'll
We can't avoid
come
it.
to it. Yeah.
If we're channeling it, we're never going to be able to avoid it. It's always going to be that stream that's running. It's just whether our attention is on it or not. So
yes,
that's pretty cool. So you have a doctorate degree.
Yes.
Okay. So should we be calling you Dr. Hall?
Well, when I was a teacher, my students called me that.
You doctor.
And
okay.
it really helped to be able to feel like I was accredited, and then you had more respect.
Understood. Yeah.
And
that makes
yes.
sense.
And it helped me, I think, in my career. My last several years, I was the coordinator of a magnet school for the arts. And so I was able to use that when I was working with recruitment with parents.
Yeah.
The students might want to go there.
Okay.
So, but I don't use it anymore.
Yeah.
Occasionally with other friends that have their doctorates, we'll joke about it.
Yeah.
But
if you're on a plane, someone's like, "You're a doctor on the plane." Well, I am. I'm a doctor.
And it's an educational leadership.
Yeah, for sure. That's very cool. So I'm curious. I've asked other people who have doctorates or PhDs or whatever, but I'm curious if there's a point where a writer can go through enough schooling that it negatively impacts creativity. Do you believe that at all?
Oh, I totally believe that. With certain things, you can be too much in your head. I think some of the poets might go to some of the universities that are very esoteric and highfalutin. And then when you go to put the words on the page, it's too intellectual. And my poetry, as you know, is very down to earth.
Yes.
And
it's very grounded.
And grounded in what's happening. And after working with Steve Cowett for a couple of years, our beloved poetry expert here that had been here with us on Earth, he would really hone in on that. Like, what are you writing about?
Yeah, yeah.
And so sometimes some of the people that might veer off on that there are different camps of poetry and writing.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I really like the one thing that poetry really helped me do in my prose was it helped me to write use the least amount of words possible in order to get a thought across.
Yeah, poetry is great for that. Kidlit is great for that too. But
I bet. Yeah.
But poetry is really, really important when it comes to distilling the essence of a story, so to speak, or the idea or a feeling or whatever it may be. You know, I love poetry for that. I've also reached a point where you know how sometimes when you're walking and you're in a crowd and there's just you have to take tiny steps to get through, but then the crowd opens up and you can walk again, that feeling, that's what I get when I start writing fiction. Because then I can be like, I can open up and just say all the things. You know, I might clean it up later, but I feel like I'm taking bigger strides when I write fiction.
Oh, good.
So, yeah, I don't know if your focus is fiction, though, as more than poetry, yeah?
Well, I wouldn't say one or the other. What happened was I had been writing for a lot of years, and my first book, and then all of a sudden I realized I didn't have a platform, and I put it aside, and I started doing poetry. And so then I just fell in love with poetry and started to submit.
Yeah.
Steve Cowett would say, submit, submit, submit.
Yeah.
And then I started to submit, and my poems started to get picked up and published. And it just raised my confidence enough to then move forward to have my fiction, my Black Velvet Coat, my first novel published.
Okay. That's a good way to build that confidence, I'm sure. Yeah. What do you think is the most important step in a writer maintaining their sense of creativity?
I think having a writing practice is really important. Is to every day find out what is your prime time. When are you really in the zone? When can you get in the zone?
Yeah.
And in different times of my life, there have been different times that I could get into the zone. It depends on who was around in my life, or what
life circumstances.
Life circumstances. Maybe you're going through a hard time, but and also find your community. Find others who are writers.
That's so big.
And, so big. And I know for me, I still go once a month. I go to a poetry read and critique group with Tanya P. And it really helps me to have that camaraderie.
Yeah.
And to hear other people's new work. And then going to our group and our...
every prose has its thorn.
Yes,
yeah, getting out to readings.
I love going there and getting up and reading and then hearing other people and what they're coming up with. It's just so special.
I think what I like about that reading is that it's both prose and poetry. You know, like you're not there for just poetry. You're not there for just prose. It's up front. You get to hear somebody talk about a book of fiction or whatever it may be, memoir. And then you get to the poetry. And that's not to say poetry should be second, but like it's a nice mix of the walking with strides and then slowing down and then taking it in with poetry.
Yeah, it's worked really well, your format there, and I enjoy it so much.
Thank you. It seems I like it. I'm glad Brendan and I do it. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So the trilogy, the Anne McFarland series.
Yes.
What makes a story need more than one book?
Well, you mean more than one story in a book?
So you have the trilogy.
So I have a trilogy, but they're also dual timeline.
Oh.
So all three of my books have Anne McFarland, who's a San Francisco artist, and she goes into thrift shops and antique malls and yard sales, and she buys items for her found objects for her artwork.
Okay.
She also finds clothing, vintage clothing. And so that's the black velvet coat, the silver shoes, and the green lace corset.
Okay.
So when I was first writing the black velvet coat, I didn't know that was the name. And I thought I had two stories going because I had Anne McFarlane, the present day artist.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was this other woman that appeared on the page, Sylvia Van Dam. She was a San Francisco socialite, young heiress. And as I kept writing these two stories, then all of a sudden I went to a yard sale and there was a black velvet coat. Mm-hmm. And I tried it on. I'm like, this is so cool. But then I'm like, where am I going to wear this? And the next day I went up and woke up and I went and found it and it was still there and I bought it.
Yeah. Okay.
And then I had dreamt about it and I realized it was the same story because there was there was a key in the pocket and Anne had this coat that she bought at a thrift shop. And then on the page, Sylvia was actually nervous because she had a blind date. She was very shy and she went to Tiffany's and she was looking for a shiny object to put onto her black velvet coat so she wouldn't be nervous during her date. And then I realized, oh my gosh, this is one book.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And then my second book in the series, what happened was I had Claire Devereaux, who was a 1929 New York debutante, and she is there, and I wrote her whole story. And then all of a sudden, there's Anne McFarland, and she's in New York City visiting her boyfriend, Sergio, and she goes into an antique shop, and she sees these silver shoes. And Anne is telling me, Jill, I want to be in this book too.
Yeah.
So
okay, so you let the character decide for you.
So my characters, they tell me what to do.
You know
I have to just follow their lead.
That is our job, is
Yes.
to just tell their story.
Yes. So I didn't decide that. And then the third one, I kind of knew ahead of time. Probably this is going to be a dual timeline, also.
Yeah.
So, but it's been a nice to have the 3 books, and yeah.
Was it hard in that third one to make sure that you maintained Anne McFarland as a character and her mannerisms or anything? Was that difficult for you to keep going with that?
Yeah, I had to go back and I had to read it again to make sure that it would flow and the story would flow because her story continues in each. Her romance.
Does? Okay.
Yeah, so her boyfriend Sergio is she meets him in the first book and the second book, and it just happened, and then and I'm not going to tell you what happens in the third one because
spoiler alert, right?
Yeah, spoiler alert. I'm not giving any spoiler alerts. So then in the green lace corset, though, the story continues.
Okay.
And then I thought I was done with it.
Yeah.
But something recently has happened.
Uh-oh.
Judy was up in Julian and she sent me a photo and she said, this reminded me of you. And it was this pink picture on a door that was this skirt hanging there with a gun underneath it. And I said, oh my gosh, Judy, you're in trouble. I'm not writing another novel. And all of a sudden I'm like, this is the pink petticoat. And so I had to go for a drive, and I was driving, and the whole way to where I was coming home, the whole first chapter came to me.
It's so funny how you're like, I'm not writing another novel, but I'm going to write another novel.
Well, no, I'm being told I'm supposed to do these. I get called to do these things, and I really feel that I'm called. And I think, especially with On a Sundown Sea, I was definitely called to write that book.
Yeah, and you have to listen.
Yeah,
you have to listen and do it because. If there's one thing that I've learned as a creative person, not just a writer, but the one thing that I've learned is that if I don't listen, I physically and mentally feel it. It will force me to do it. Mm-hmm. It'll make me feel bad until I do it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, and I kind of like that, it's like I have this pothos plant hanging up here and it'll tell you when it needs water.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah. Same thing. Good.
Yeah. So in a way, like it's very much similar where if I get a story idea, I'm like, I'll get to it, or it's going to get to me at some point.
Yeah, but what happens to me is I will not, if something comes to me, I can't go to sleep. I have to turn on the light and grab my journal and get it down or I'll lose it.
Are you ever woken up in the middle of the night with stuff like that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And you still turn on the light and get writing.
Well, I try to go back to sleep, but if I can't go back to sleep and it just keeps there nagging me, I have to wake up.
Has there ever been a time where it nags you, but it's just not the story you end up writing or want to write even? And do you put it down, or have there been ideas that were dead ends, basically?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. And then times where, you write. A lot of times I use writing for therapy.
Yeah,
and
okay.
some of that stuff I hope will never be
see light of
published.
day. Yeah, yeah.
So I don't write just...
Poor Kafka. He just wanted to tell stories by himself, And here we are just publishing his stuff.
Yeah.
So you talked with Judy Reeves, who was pretty much the founder of San Diego Writers Inc.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Now you have been on the board member, or you've been the board president.
I was the board president.
Okay.
Yes, for quite a while when Judy started. We started Writers Inc. Then Judy fell in love with a poet and moved to Barcelona.
It happens all the time.
Yeah, and then some of us kept it going, and we did a lot of classes and workshops. We started Dime Stories at the Grove, and we had a lot of things there. We kind of were a movable feast. And then Judy moved back, and we looked at each other. She said, we decided it's either we're going to do it or we're not going to do it. We're going to move forward with this.
Yeah.
And so I said, okay, if you're executive director, I'll be board president, and we'll do it.
Okay.
And so we really moved forward with it and kept it going.
So you were early on the board president,
Yes.
the first one, I would think.
One of the first. There was one person before that and another person that was sort of interim.
Okay,
So,
in between. Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
All right. And we talked a little bit about this already, but about community. But how important is it to maintain that presence in any kind of writers community? Or are there some where you don't fit? Like, for example, as much as I love slam poetry, I'm not a slam poet. So it's not a community I go to, even though it's part of the larger community, So how important is it to find your corner within that community?
Oh, I totally agree. And I'm not a slam poet.
Mm-hmm.
And there are so many wonderful organizations just here in San Diego. So say we all.
Yeah.
They're awesome and they're
Right.
doing great stuff. But I don't see myself standing up and doing a vamp.
No.
It's not my thing.
I've done a few.
Have you done a few? And maybe I will, but I've been so focused on getting the books done.
Yes. Yeah.
That I haven't been able to do any memoir pieces.
Got it. Okay.
Like that.
Yeah.
But they do awesome work, and they work with, and they're a great community. And so I think it's wonderful. And we have our memoir group that is, Marnie's group, Friedman's group, they're really tight, and they really help shepherd memoirs.
They've even got their
out
own
into the
festival.
world, and their own festival and their own anthologies and their own. We're so lucky in San Diego.
Yeah,
a lot of writers come and visit, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, there's so much here."
I was shocked, and this was about 15 years ago. I was shocked when I got here and was like, "This is a lot more than I thought there'd be."
Mm-hmm,
And it's great. It's great.
Yeah.
I like So Say We All. I've, it's a cool place for beginning writers or even non-writers to tell a story.
Yes. Yes.
So you can just get up there and I've got this story, and everybody's got a story.
Yes.
And they get up and they tell that story, and they may not ever write a story again, but I love that it's a place for that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that they do really good work there.
Yeah. Always try to find, if you're a writer within a community, find your corner of that community, and check them all out. But eventually you're going to find the one that you probably...
And even within Writers Inc., we have different communities.
Different groups, yeah.
So we have Thursday writers, and that meet every Thursday at Lestat's and do prompt writing. And then we've poets. We have a kind of a group of us that are poets, and it's really great.
I love this community. It's magical. It's inspiring. It's motivating. It's just there are some clicks, but overall it's just a really good place to be. It's very, very good for that sort of thing. As far as critique groups are concerned, which you mentioned some of those, what are things that a writer should look for in a critique group that works best for them?
Yes, I think that it's really important, especially when you're an early writer and you join a critique group, make sure that you have a professional running the group.
But say more about that.
Well, I think peer groups can be once you've maybe been through a critique group.
Okay.
But it has to be a safe environment.
Yeah.
And if you're a professional writer who's already published, they really know the ropes, and they know what you need to know. So, and then they make it safe where there are guidelines on how you do the critique, that it's positive and it's supportive. And if you do have a suggestion, it's a suggestion. So I think that the main thing to look for is one that is run by a professional.
Yeah. And that's so helpful to have somebody who's been around the block a bit. I've been in a few critique groups and even classes that were critique classes, like a semester long, and it's you find out early on who is really in it, and who's just doing it to do it.
And sometimes I'll be in a group with people who they're not generous in their critiques.
Yeah.
And I'll get mine back, their critique, and it won't even say anything positive. When I critique, I always look for at least one thing on every page that I can put a line under with a check mark, which means I liked it.
I liked it, yeah.
And that's what we want them to keep. So I think critique, my first book, I went through 2 full read and critique groups.
Wow.
With the Black Velvet Coat, because I was just learning how to write.
Yeah.
And that's how I learned the craft, was through that process.
Critique groups can be really helpful for that. There's also the concern that they, as you said, if they're not as professional or experienced or whatever it may be, they can kind of take you down a path that may not be right for the story.
Exactly.
And that can be troublesome.
Exactly. Yeah.
Did you ever teach writing?
I ran Artist Way groups.
Okay.
When I left the school district, I started to do Artist Way groups, which is a 12-step program written by Julia Cameron on finding your creative path.
Yeah.
And I love doing that. And I did that for a long time. I went through 12 years of it, where I shepherded people trying to be creative through it. So, and I did that, and now I mostly teach workshops I'm teaching one coming up next month on Author Platform.
Oh, cool.
And that's at Writers Inc. So I've always felt, because I just didn't feel like I'm an expert at writing, and so I didn't feel like I could teach writing. And now if I have a really good friend, I might read their manuscript and give them some feedback. But I'm not really good at the actual editing
like
part of it.
Like a line-by-line stuff.
I'm not a line editor at all. I am not great with commas. I don't know where the commas need to go. I have to depend.
I'm with you on that sometimes.
I have to depend on my editors.
Yeah. Does that need a colon, a semicolon, or is that a...
Yes. Yeah. So I'm depending on others for that, for me. So I don't really teach writing. I will do prompt writing, though, definitely.
Yeah.
I did run Brown Bag for a long time.
Oh, fun. Okay.
Which would meet every week and prompt and timed, but it was not for critique.
Right.
It was just for witnessing what we've written. So I do prompt writing. We'll do a collage and then write to it.
Yeah.
So I do prompt writing, but not the actual critiquing part.
Okay. I'm curious about a question about critique groups. Sometimes when I teach a podcasting class, someone will say, well, what if my idea is already being done? And most of the time it is, most of the time it really is. We've got over 3 million podcasts out there. If you come up with an original idea for a podcast, you are a unicorn. But I always tell them to listen to what they're doing, figure out what they're not doing, and then do that. So I'm curious, when it comes to critique groups and things of that nature, would you suggest, if you're not finding what you're looking for in a critique group, to start your own? Or how can you, do you have to adjust yourself as a writer to fit into a critique group? Like, what's the best way to go about that?
Well, some people just aren't into critique.
Yeah, okay.
They can't take critique.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's really frustrating when you're in a group with someone and you give them suggestions.
And they're arguing with you.
And one thing that we do in most of the groups that I've been in is you're not allowed to talk back. When you're getting critiqued, you listen to it and then you can ask questions, but you don't try to
prove something.
Prove it.
Yeah.
And because these are always just suggestions.
Right.
You're the artist and you get to make the final decision on what comes out, what you get to keep in it or not.
Yeah.
So that's,
That's a very powerful realization to come to as a writer, to go, oh, I don't actually have to go with what they said. I have to consider it. I should consider it, but I don't actually have to follow through with what they are suggesting.
Well, and the fun thing is a lot of times you'll be in a group and some of the people in the group will say one thing and then other people will say, oh, well, we don't agree. I don't agree. I think you should keep it. And
right.
Steve Cowett sometimes would hit the table and say, okay, let's vote. How many of you think she should keep it? And how many of you think she should take it out?
Yeah.
It'd be 50-50. So we...
You're on your own at that point.
Yeah.
Some people, I've always wondered, if one person doesn't like it, is it the reader, or is there something that the writer needs to adjust to say, hey, look, I didn't get this across clear enough?
The writer should look at it, consider it, analyze it, and go with their gut.
Yeah, okay.
On what needs to happen there. If someone doesn't understand it, a lot of times when we critique, we're looking for things that don't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
So, and enough people say this doesn't make sense, then and write it actually on the thing, and you get enough of those critiques back saying this doesn't make sense, you really should try to rewrite that little section to make it clearer.
Yeah. I did an interview with Robbie Maxted, the poet who teaches at Point Loma Nazarene with Katie Manning and all that. So, but, we were talking about submitting writing, and he said he'll submit a story 20, 30 times, and if it gets rejected 20 or 30 times, then he's like, okay, maybe there's something wrong with the story. But if it's rejected 5 times, it could be just those 5 people that read it that didn't like it, and another person down the hall would. So it's I think that sort of lesson when it comes to writing, if you've got a majority of people saying, hey, this doesn't work, then you should go, okay, I probably should go back. I may not agree, but there's obviously something missing from it that's not connecting with people.
Yeah, that's true. I had one of my writing teachers had said that she had this essay that she really thought was great. She kept submitting it. Then she went back, she changed the title, and it got picked up right away.
Just the title.
And so you never know what little thing you can do to make it better. And also talking about sending out something 20 times is you have to believe in yourself enough to keep sending it out.
Yeah.
And if it's 20 times, and if it's a novel, of course you're going to send it out 100 times.
Of course,
maybe.
Right. Yeah,
you're going to when it's traditionally published. But if it's a poem, then I think you need to look at it again. Like there's something here that's not working.
Yeah. I think that's really important, and also who is saying it. I talk with Leslie Ferguson and Kelly Bowen a lot about writing, and we'll share writing back and forth, and whenever those two say, hey, this didn't work for me or whatever, I listen because I trust them as writers. And I know their minds when it comes to writing, because I've seen them not only make my stories better, but their stories are great, So it's also important, I think, to trust the person that is giving you the critique.
Yeah, and there are certain people that you learn who in your life who are really good editors for you.
Yeah.
And people to give feedback, and it's not your mother.
No, it's not. No. No.
I don't share anything that I'm working on until I've got a really good draft.
Yeah.
And then I might start sharing it. But I have, there's certain people in my life that I've had a chance to really know who can give me really good feedback and help me through it.
Well, I will say with one of my poems, it made my mother cry, and I knew that I did it well. I wrote it well.
That's good.
If I can make someone cry with a poem, then I think I've done my job.
Yeah, especially your mother.
Especially your mother. Well, and she doesn't cry much lately anymore. But yeah, so that I can. You're absolutely right. Like you've got to look at that part too. I mentioned the Camus graduation commencement speech earlier on, and in it he talked about how. Writers and artists are necessary for a civil society, and how important that is. And this was in the 50s.
Yes.
It seems like that is pertinent today. Like that's a very important thing. So outside of just imagining a world without art, what sort of impact do you think writers and artists have on society?
I think it's the beauty of the world. And it's what keeps us to be able to know we're human, and that there's more than just money and more than just material things.
Yeah.
And that awe that we get when we see a piece of art that speaks to us. I think it keeps us centered and grounded and loved.
Yeah.
And being able to love.
Will you read a story that you may not entirely connect with, but you just enjoy? Will you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Is that
if
something?
I enjoy it.
If you enjoy it.
If I enjoy it.
So you don't need to connect with anything in any way.
No, I've been in a book club for many years, and whoever the hostess is gets to choose the book.
Okay.
And the good thing about that is I've been exposed to books that I wouldn't normally have picked up myself.
Yeah.
And right now I'm reading a lot of historical fiction because that's the genre that I'm writing.
Mm-hmm.
But definitely, I think that we should sometimes spread out and read other genres than what we would normally choose.
It can only help us as a writer.
And as a person.
And as a person, that's a very good point. Yeah. Do you try to write things that you don't normally write too?
No.
No? Okay.
I only write what I'm called to write.
Yeah.
Whatever comes on the page. Whatever comes on the page comes on the page.
So whether it's historical fiction or poetry or even memoir stuff.
Stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you written your own memoir yet?
Well, I went through a really bad time and I journaled every day.
Okay.
But I don't know if I'll ever get it published.
Didn't have enough sticky notes in those journals.
Yeah, I have it. It's there, and I probably would. And my therapist said, I think you need to be sharing this with other people. This story because it is so intense. But at the same time, I'm like, no, I don't want to go back there right now.
Yeah.
Maybe later in my life, and maybe when he dies.
Yeah. Then that can come out. Yeah.
Then it could be published. But in the meantime, I just don't feel that would serve me in any way.
Yeah.
It would make me too sad, and I want to be happy.
Yeah, no, it's true. Hey, I've got these manuscripts of poetry that I'm trying to get published, and it's not easy poetry in those, and I don't, when they get published, and I'm saying when, not if, I don't know how easy or difficult it's going to be to get back into that feeling, because I'm going to have to get out there and recite some poetry from these books, and talk about it and stuff like that. And that's some really hard writing to get back into.
And when I'm writing a novel, I never leave in something that I would be embarrassed to read out loud.
Yeah.
So if it's a sex scene,
yeah,
and I usually, I have some, but they're not that raunchy or anything.
Got it.
And I don't use foul language in my work. It's just part of who I am.
Yeah.
But, sometimes I have written drafts that had some like wild stuff, and there is some wild stuff in my stuff, but you just don't really realize it, until it's not that, for what's out there now, it's nothing,
Sure. Yeah,
so that's one guideline that I use. But some of my poetry is really, sharp in terms of that, and I will only read those when I feel safe in your your readings.
You've read a few.
I've read a few that are really chill, really.
Wow, I didn't know you had that in you.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
it's fun to, I think, surprise even yourself sometimes with that sort of stuff. But whether it sees the light of day is a whole other.
Yeah, and some of them I won't try to publish, and I just
needed to get it out.
Just needed to get it out and to share it.
Yeah. I think that's the fun of writing, is you get to decide what people see. You can write anything you want, but you choose.
Yeah.
And after you're dead, who knows what happens after that? But again, Kafka. But yeah. So I that's one of the things I like about being a writer, is I can write whatever. I can write a bunch of crap, but I get to choose who sees what crap.
Yes.
So to speak. Yeah. All right, let's go ahead and wrap up. I've got a question for you that I always ask people. If there was one poem, song, story, anything creative you wish you wrote, what would it be?
The Sound of Music.
Yeah? I haven't had that answer yet. Why that one?
Because I love that. I love that whole movie.
Yeah.
I always had a vision. I really wanted to be Maria.
Okay. All right.
And I can sing every single song from The Sound of Music and Mary Poppins with an English accent. So, I just really wish that I was in one of those with Julie Andrews as my hero.
I that's a great answer. I don't like musicals, but I will say that I wish I was one of the sharks or jets in West Side Story.
Okay.
You know, like I just want to be able to dance and fight at the same time.
Yes.
You know, like I thought. So I get it. Is there anything about The Sound of Music that you like, any techniques or ideas or anything that you put in your own stories, or do you just enjoy it? Like, does it have an influence on you in that way?
I think so. I think actually, yes. Because I think the character of Maria was so important, she was so loving. And I like all my characters to have, except for maybe the antagonist.
Sure,
I like all of my characters to be lovable in some ways. And she was, she was very lovable. And it was romantic. I love romance.
Yeah.
And so that's part of it too.
Part of it. Is it hard to write a villain? Do you find it hard to?
Well, I've actually had fun. In this last book, I have a really heavy villain.
Okay.
And Rich Farrell, who was coaching me, really made me dig into that. And he gave me some tips on how to make him even more of a villain. And I ended up having a lot of fun.
Yeah. Okay.
And then my friend Ken Small, whose parents grew up on the property with Catherine Tingley, was so excited when he read my advanced copy. He said, "Oh my gosh, you just wrote him so horribly great." He just
so perfectly bad.
Yeah, he was really happy to see that. So
good.
Yeah.
So you had fun. It's fun to dip into a character that you wouldn't normally write.
Oh yeah. It pushes you to go to a different extreme and use a different talent. Yeah.
Do you think that it would be easier for you to write less of a romantic character now that you've gone through that, of writing a villain that was so very villainous?
No, I think it'll make me somebody that's ask that question again.
Yeah. So do you think now that you've done it, now that you've written the villain and made it so bad, do you think it's easier now to implement that sort of character into your stories?
I think I'll be able to be more, even have a stronger character.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's.
Yeah. Write a better, a stronger villain.
Stronger villain, because you've done it now.
Yeah.
And
I've done it in this. Yeah.
Were you afraid of writing a villain, or was it just never came up in the story?
Well, I had villains in my other books.
Yeah.
I wasn't really afraid. I put that person in there, that character in there, because you have to have...
Got to have the other side.
Got to have the other side.
Yeah.
But I was afraid to make him so bad.
Got it, yeah.
And I found then things about his real life from my research that I'm like, oh, he really is horrible. So I was able to use those things to even ratchet it up even more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a story I wrote, the mid late 90s, somewhere around there. I was in my 20s, and it is a very graphic and evil story. And it's basically this guy who got fired, kidnapped his boss, and tortured him. And I think I just needed to get that out because I hated my job. I didn't hate my boss. I didn't care about my boss.
Yeah,
really.
okay.
I just needed to get it out. That'll never get published.
Yeah.
Because that's such a graphic story that's not what I want out there. That was for me. That was my therapy, to get out any hard feelings that I was having.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it's good to be able to get those out.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Well, Jill, this was everything I hoped it would be. And I'm really glad we got to do it. So thank you.
Thank you.